The temperature is nice and warm in the Boiling Point podcast studio, so come on in, get cozy, and let's enjoy the conversation. We empower leaders through thoughtful discussions to positively impact our world. Our host, Dave Vale, founder and CEO of Vision Coaching Inc., is highlighting how we can thrive in business communities. Our conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, and inspirational storytellers are shining a spotlight on empowerment. Joining Dave this week is our special guest host, Emily Roger. Let's join the conversation with Dave and Emily.
Hello, Dave Vale.
Hello, Emily. You're in a different spot.
I am in a different spot, and are you? And I love the beautiful butterfly art piece that is behind you. I see you have redecorated your office, and it just screams Dave Vale.
Really? Well, that's good to know because it's in fact my wife's office, and as I was showing you earlier, across just over here, there's a picture that says "Wild at Heart." So thankfully, that's over there. But you know, where I usually record, there's this like bright light coming in, and I just thought, you know what, I got to move. I got to get some blind stuff. What about your space? What's going on there?
So I am attempting to upgrade my podcast sound quality. I moved into a new place, and the ceilings are so high that every single room, my office, everywhere is echoey. So I have moved into one of my closets, which is large enough to have my desk. And I feel like I'm a professional podcaster now because I'm in a closet. It's like that is what you hear of people doing. And I tried to up my game one more by buying a microphone, but Excellent. I cannot get it to connect. So I'm just hoping for like the placebo effect that if I like speak into this, even though it's not even plugged in, that my sound is going to be better.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I forgot my microphone, unfortunately. So, so speaking of like closet stuff, like when this was first started with Greg Hemmings, we were in a recording booth, and our guest coming up will recognize this name and knows the person we're talking about. But the story was we would interview people, and it was usually there was no ventilation. It was so warm. We start sweating, and we had one guest, David Alston, in, and Alston. We said we're going to call it the hot box and all these things. He said, no, call it the Boiling Point. And then this became the Boiling Point ever since. And so that goes back to probably the third episode. So, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
You being in a closet, it's like totally appropriate.
Well, and it's funny because this morning I was actually listening to an older Boiling Point podcast, and the story came up about how the name came about, and I actually never knew and hadn't even really thought of like, why'd they pick the Boiling Point? But yeah, so it's funny you bring that into context, and here I am probably going to be like sweating here in 10 minutes because it's so hot.
Speaking of which, this room's a little warmer than I'm used to, so it might, so we're bringing back the old studio where we'd be crammed in, and I guess we're just doing it virtually and just trying to create the same conditions. So what do you think about the new guest? This guest we have. What
I am looking forward to chatting with him, and it is funny because like I love how many guests come on the podcast that I'm like, how have I not been connected with this person already? Because of similar communities, similar groups, and Nigel is definitely one of those people who I am just selfishly looking forward to having a conversation with and getting to meet.
Okay, well, let's bring in Nigel O, as he's known on his LinkedIn profile, to introduce himself. And so maybe that's a good place to start. Like, tell me about Nigel O, because maybe I'll start doing Dave V, but that wouldn't, I'm just Davey, right? Wouldn't work.
Yeah, it's funny that it actually shows Nigel O. So I need to check the setting. So Nigel Orfei is the last name, and so. Long history of working in customer support, customer success, really solving pain and problem, and helping turning frowns upside down, helping to make sure customers are happy, healthy. Really anything post-sale is kind of my thing, whether it was like early days of working in retail or in the past kind of 15 plus years working in tech in a variety of industries, and I've just learned so much over the years. also a husband and father, and learn so much from my two teenagers.
Yeah, we learn lots from our kids. Now, Nigel, Emily and I both were looking at your LinkedIn profile, and separately, we're telling Genevieve there's this one statement that popped up. I won't steal it. It'll be Emily's, not mine. But there's one statement you make that really just for both of us pops out. Isn't that the truth, Emily?
It is, yeah. And it's funny because Genevieve and I were chatting first, and I had mentioned this. And then when Dave came on and Dave mentioned it, and Genevieve was like, I bet that is the exact same thing that Emily was just talking about. And it was you stating that, like, that you are passionate about solving customer pain by being there for them, and that you take their trust how'd you quote? I take their trust in me very seriously.
Yep.
And yeah, elaborate on that.
Yeah, do you know, you saying that actually brings a small tear to my eye, and no joke, of like, the idea of feeling really disappointed when I feel like we have let someone down. With me owning something, me being part of a company and owning an outcome and having some control over it, and knowing that I let someone down, and knowing that what they're going to hear from me is the honest truth. An example is there was some kind of an issue or some kind of an outage, and I go back to the customer and say, I know that impacted you. I'm really sorry that impacted your ability to log in. I know the reason, and it was actually caused by human error. And the person that was involved was really concerned. And I said, we're learning and growing, and now we know what caused the issue, and we're moving on from it. Being open and honest and trusting and getting people to count on me, count on us, is just a winning strategy from my own perspective. It is a deposit that just continues to pay off, the making deposits and withdrawals, I am who I am, and I want to make sure that people have a positive experience.
I like to take trust in me seriously. So it's, in other words, it's that what that implies to me, Nigel, is that you've earned the trust, and you take that very seriously, and you don't want, and you want to make sure if anything happens, you want to make sure that trust is restored. Is kind of what I took from that. Would that be accurate? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And, really it comes down to kind of being in the background, the voice behind the curtain to like prop someone up, for lack of a better word, like, let me feed you a bunch of things and I'll help to make you feel good. And privately, you can say thank you. And that's really all that I need. But, I just want to help navigate through this. And whether we're solving a problem or, it's a coaching thing or whatever the case may be, I'll just help you be successful. I'll help you get promoted, or I'll help you make you look good. And afterwards you can say thank you, and then that'll be enough.
I think you kind of gave an example, but how to make sure you retain that trust, like especially over the lifetime of a customer experience. Like what are things that are critically important? And I'm listening very intently because Emily and I are coaches, and we collaborate together with Vision Coaching, and we do a lot. And I'll tell you, that's the most important ingredient. Stephen Covey talked about trust being, the new global currency. And it is so important, especially if something's maybe gone sideways. I'm just curious, what kind of steps do you think are really critical to making sure you retain that trust?
Yeah, well, for me, number one, the sense of urgency, using the words, but then also them feeling it. It could be like, hey, we know this thing is going on. And here's what I'm going to commit to doing. I'm going to send you a meeting invite for this time. I'm going to send you an email follow-up every day at 4 p.m. with an update along the way. Speaking quickly, seeing the look on my face, feeling and seeing that it actually like hurts me, that I'm actually quite disappointed that this happened to you. And we're going to turn this around. So trust me that we'll move on from this. But sense of urgency is 100% number one on that list. And the other one is like emotion, and like it's harder over the phone now. And, in the old days when I used to travel a lot more, it was, you could feel it a lot more. But just seeing the little bits, like seeing me, talk with my hands, or seeing a frown, or seeing me like stumble with words, like it's all true, not artificial, but all of it makes a difference.
Just that human side of the equation, just people seeing you as fallible and human and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and difficult to do, I find. Like even you and I speaking, and if I was to make a statement and I was to say, like what I just said, I don't think it landed. Like, because I see the look on your face, and like I know the words, but I don't think there was a connection. Can you tell me if that landed? And you would say, yeah, you're right, it didn't land, or yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, things are good.
Yeah. Or in what way it landed in the other person. Because what you say I could interpret as something totally different. And then I'm waiting for a different response. And something that stands out to me in hearing you say that, and something that I had just been so aware of lately, most in particularly, is just acknowledgement and the power of acknowledgement and acknowledging people's feelings. And so when hearing you say that in dealing with customer support, in that you're actually acknowledging instead of being dismissive of the way that the customer is feeling, and that even just that opens up that feeling, I think, of safety and trust.
Yeah, I have a hard time because there is an alternate strategy where a customer owns the path that they're on, and they created something for themselves, and I'm just here in the background. Like an example would be, I would be talking to you, and something went astray, and I would say to you, "Well, remember, Dave or Emily, this is what happened. You told me this thing last week, and this is the reason why it happened." Like shifting the blame over to you, versus this thing happened and I'm not happy about it. I know you're not either. Let's just figure it out. Like I could remind you that you caused this problem, or like this is your path, but I would never play that card. Like there's just no point or value in me reminding people that that's something they chose. Ultimately, I helped you get off path. Like I should have fought harder. I should have suggested that that's not a winning strategy, and you should not be doing that. And you need to feel that and know that I can't support you if you choose this option because it's just wrong and bad, and this isn't the way you're going to win.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I was going to just say, so like what got you on this path, Nigel? Like this is really, it's not. I'm just imagining, someone going through high school saying, I really want to enhance the customer experience. Like I don't think you hear that a lot, although. Being in business, I know how critically important it is. So I'm just kind of curious how this path, like where it started.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was customer success school, and that such a thing does exist, and that people would come out with a set of skills. It's a hard answer. I have been working in retail or some kind of a customer service job my whole time, my whole career, and I spoke at a conference a little while back, a dev conference, and it was the only topic that wasn't code related, development related. And I don't have a development or code background, but it is meaningful, to people about customer success and customer support and how I interact and the value in it. And there's a lot of head nods. And so I think it's just like the feedback along the way, of people feeling like or suggesting that that my approach or the words or how I dealt with something was great. Like, and like, I've never seen that happen before. And like, how did you turn that around? And like, that's what drives me, like money and title and all that is great and all that. But at the same time, it really is just a smile and a thank you. And like, I think people just fostered it over time, and I just like fell into it and figured out a way to navigate, not one for dealing with a lot of conflict in the early days. It was like, well, I need to figure out words where I can say something and it lands with you, and that you learn from it and you move on. Like same as me asking a bunch of questions and helping you get somewhere versus telling you the answer. So I think it's just positive feedback along the way that's kind of like propped me up, and taught, self-taught of like what I should say and what I should not say, and hoping to pass that along in every interaction.
To me, it's describing, Emily, doesn't it sound like what we would call the coach approach, in terms of the language that Nigel's encouraging?
Yeah, absolutely. And then Nigel, with that, I was going to say, like, do you feel that your way of being, because I feel that is very much a way of being, and in taking that approach that you take, is that something that like has come naturally to you, or is it like skill sets that you felt that you have had to really kind of build up in order to?
No, I would probably say it came natural, or part of how I was raised. It's just kind of like one of those things that you just pick up and run with. My education post-secondary is kind of like business admin, general management, leading teams. But I think it just is, I think it's probably this is just meant to be, that I just probably didn't have another path.
Yeah. Yeah. That you, that you didn't necessarily find that role, but that role just kind of found you.
Yeah. I mean, and even in my LinkedIn history or like my job history, and even the stuff that's like off the page, it's all been variations of like supporting customers face to face and over the phone and on calls. And all have found very, very, very beneficial and positive, even though sometimes things are negative. This is me like building something, this is me like contributing to a better place. Like it's in an interaction or an email or a phone call. And so it's just fostered, built over time.
How do you prioritize? It's like, you said that you will follow up with them and then get back to them at the end, by the end of the day. How do you then, because I hear this a lot with clients of like, at the end of the day, there's so many things that I then need to follow up with. How do I then prioritize how to follow up with them? What is your approach to that?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard. But for me, it's 100% just pure listening. And I was joking earlier about these like little like, trinkety things on my desk, that kind of keeps me focused in the moment. It is easy for me to be over here on my screen, looking at my other email, but I do really try to listen. And if something's important to you or I gauge, then it has to be more important to me. And that's just how it is. And so like how you respond, how someone else would respond would be variable. And then I'll just kind of pick up and run with it based on the words that you use or the look on your face or, the corresponding urgency. But it all rank on a scale. It sometimes does mean really late nights or really early mornings because everything is super important and I just have to wrap it all up before I go to bed. But it really is just the words that I hear, and the look on someone's face and, putting it into a kind of a severity category.
When you think of yourself as a customer for a sec, can you describe like the kind of the best experience, most amazing experience you had from a customer perspective and what made it so amazing?
Yeah, I could tell you that that's a really hard answer for me, that I have really high expectations and I'm frequently disappointed. When something is just a job versus something that someone really cares about and I really feel it. So it's really just the ownership mentality, of like going into a place and me feeling like they actually want to solve a problem or really want to solve or help me with something that I'm really struggling with. And they can tell this is a really difficult problem. And so, just the emotion side, I think is lacking sometimes. And then also the care, like there's just too many people where this is a job. Like nobody trains to be in customer support. There's no customer success school. There's no tech support school, that nobody chose this path per se. There's a lot of really great people in this industry, but it's unfortunate that there are maybe too many people that, it's just a job and they haven't figured out a way to care enough and make it the best,
Just to follow up on that, I'm thinking like it drives my wife crazy so I feel like, as a small business owner in the work we do, I want to create the best experience possible for the customer and the lengths we'll go to. And, I sincerely feel that way. So I have an expectation and maybe and she would say it's a little, maybe an unreal expectation when I go certain places that I have a similar experience as a customer. Right. And it drives me crazy when I think I'm trying to, if I'm being served in a restaurant, like it's like, sometimes it feels like it's become my job to make the interaction good. I'm like, and not that I don't have a part in it, but I always find it a little frustrating. And it's just like, okay, relax. Can we just enjoy this experience? So there is a little of that, eh? Like, and just to add to that, it was like, I was just in Toronto and my brother, he owns a business as well. And we were at this coffee shop. It's one of those ones off of like Queen Street or something, and you go down the stairs, and it's really cool, and it's owner operated, I would think, and the woman behind just her service is so excellent, and so we made a bet. But the problem is we both agreed, so we couldn't really bet on it. Was the person serving us the owner? Because you talked about that owner kind of mindset, right? And the experience was such that we were both like, we say, well, like, we'll bet that, guarantee that's you. Just because it was just her, the experience and how she was trying to keep everyone happy and all that sort of thing. And even almost the stress she was feeling to get everyone through the line. And, so that was the first question. Is this your place? And sure enough, yeah, she goes, oh yeah. But you can feel it, right? And not every experience is because it's the owner, but I found that very interesting to have that experience of, how we were being served and really kind of recognizing it's that ownership mindset.
Yeah, I've had so many discussions kind of the other way. Whenever I'm surveyed, I fill it out honestly, not to be a jerk, but to share constructive feedback. And often people do call back or email back, and the discussion is like, this just didn't feel right to me. Like I was at the counter and this thing happened. Like, how would it feel? Like thinking about all these things, and the response is like, you're right. That just didn't seem right. And like, I want to help, improve service across the board. So there's a lot of pride. And, I think we're losing the face to face, kind of support mentality of like wowing people in an interaction. But I do take the opportunity and like every little bit to try to share something helpful from my own perspective. And it generally lands, and that generally it's appreciative versus an attack.
Yeah, and with sharing that feedback, like another kind of common theme that I have been hearing amongst clients and leaders is how, like, in their words, it would be kind of this next generation, it's harder to instill those qualities in, and that there's almost like this sense of entitlement. And how, like, are you able to, as a leader, help to instill, like, being able to be so good at customer service? Is that something that, like, you just teach, you give workshops on? Like, how can people be better at that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My approach is rolling up my sleeves and being involved. And so I do hold a senior role at a tech company. And I think traditionally my role wouldn't be involved day to day, completing administrative tasks or being involved in things. But I do that. I do want to understand the tech and I do want to understand people. I do want to understand where there's breakdowns of people going through motions and something breaks at step number 7, but they haven't been able to get the momentum to fix step 7 to get to step 8, and so I think the first part of it is that I'm very, very involved, maybe too involved, not from a micromanagement perspective, but from a cog in the wheel, with us being a machine, that, I'm contributing to positive outcomes and I'm here. And the other one is contributing on calls or participating in calls. And, I would offer feedback of ways to handle something, so whether it's like my words first, we get an objection and it's my words first. And then the next call, it's their words, or, we're on a call and we're on Slack, and I'm messaging them in the background of like, hey, this would be a good thing to say now, and then it's all like that they're driving it. But it really is about trying to support people and trying to help them and try to have those answers. And so I think it's like being there, like being around, listening, joining calls is more difficult. I'm fully remote now. Listening on calls and trying to participate and picking up on any like nugget that we can run with to, improve our service or support by, 0.01% of the time.
So you're talking about 10,000 coffees, is that right? Yeah. What tell us and the listeners about that. What that's such. I love the name. First off, because I love coffee.
Yeah. Well, and it was just such a great serendipitous thing. And so like I'm a new member of the team, and like what we were just talking about customer support and like solving problems and being there for people. That's just kind of like how I am. I want people around me to be better than me and maybe try to help them. And basically this technology is it connects individuals for informal mentoring and skill development. The idea of like, you're at a company like Nike, you've got different levels of an organization, and we would match people based on many different criteria with the two people to support each other. So like a new member of the team with a tenured member of the team, and we would kind of curate discussions along the way and introduce them and help them kind of get to know each other, help that person feel welcome in the organization, and maybe like upskill them at the same time. And so it's such a great way to retain team members. Like the tech is winning, but at the same time, it like that is my approach, or like my strategy with team members is like, I want people to be successful and progress in their organization. So it's so great to be part of it and watch as other people do the same thing and use the tech for good, there's tech out there that, is really, really great, but this is like tech that solves a real problem that's like changing the world. And maybe the one other small thing I can mention is there's a program in Canada called Future Launch, which is basically matching through the tech graduates with alumni. And so I'm a mentor through this program with the school I graduated from. Basically connects me automatically to recent grads of anything that I can do to help prop them up, with LinkedIn advice or resume building or interview questions or whatever. And so it's like, whether someone's looking for a quote office job or like whatever, there are things that I can offer that would be harder, especially in this remote world. And, I'm in New Brunswick. The school I graduated from is Calgary, is different, but there is just a really great element here of trying to help people progress in their careers and, upskill.
Yeah, and in reading about you, Nigel, and hearing more about you, and it's very apparent that you put a huge emphasis on mentorship and being a mentor and giving back to the community. And, before I kind of dive into that a little bit more, I'm curious as to who would be one or two of those key mentors that you have had that have really made an impact on your life.
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I would say the first one goes back quite a long way. It's kind of my transition, like far, far off of my LinkedIn, to in the day of an office job, versus retail, finishing post-secondary. My parents weren't in that industry. I didn't know anyone, that had, it's funny to say this out loud, but an office job, like I just didn't want to work in retail anymore. And so, through a variety of connections, I found somebody that worked at a company that I had applied for. And in the background, he was like providing guidance and nudges and help along the way of an angle to play, and had given me tips along the way of things to say in the phone interview or things to say in the face-to-face interview. And like, I had done all my research, and I know all about the company, and here's how I can help. And it was a strategy, that was effective. And the other ones have been people along the way that in a really awkward moment actually took the time to give really difficult feedback. I had once applied for a job at a tech company, my call center job, actually a while back, off my resume as well. But I didn't get the job, and afterwards talking about why that is and why I wasn't considered. And he told me very specifically the moment into the interview that went sour. And man, I was disappointed, but I didn't even get it. And like, I legitimately changed my approach because he offered really difficult feedback. And I know it was hard for him to say that. But it landed, and I'm generally pretty open to feedback, but he actually did take a minute to tell me and offer something that he could have said there was someone with more experience, and I would have been fine, but he offered something very direct and very to the point. That was really, really helpful. Which I also try to do as much as possible, depending on the personality I'm interacting with, is to offer something. But, it's all the little people, not little people, the people along the way that have just helped, and have understood me well enough to know what I needed in the moment.
So it's so interesting to hear you describe that. It brings up probably stories for you as well, Emily, but of just this wonderful mentor who unfortunately passed away a little over a year ago. And what resonated in your story, Nigel, is the fact that I think good mentorship often requires just being, very candid with someone in a way that might actually not hurt them, but might cause some consternation or someone to rethink something, and just an attaboy isn't the same. And I remember being just completely at a loss for how to deliver this particular workshop that I thought was going to be tough. And I thought I'd get the answer, right? I thought I'd go to, her name was Deb Armstrong. I go to Deb, she would give me the answer, and then I'd be safe, right? And instead she said, I believe you can figure this out. If you want, here's something you can read. And you know what I mean? And I was thinking, this is terrible. Like I need help, right? But actually she was helping me. And I'm kind of hearing something similar in what you're describing.
Yeah. Do you know, actually, that also reminds me of another mentor that I was interacting with that I was absolutely in awe of, in that we were sitting in a room she was coaching someone sitting beside me, and I was in the room as another senior member of the team. But in a series of about 20 questions, she helped that person see where things went wrong and what he needed to do differently without saying, what you said to that person was wrong, and you need to stop doing that, and you need to start saying this instead. It was like, tell me how you think that person felt. Like, how did they respond when you said that? Did you see the look on their face? Like a series of questions that I still today think about that and the words that she used. And it's just like such an art, to help people see something without telling them, and helping them reflect and really realize, like, yeah, you're right. I really messed that up and I'm going to do better. Great. Now we're going to move on. And so, yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah, so I have founded and run a nonprofit called On the Rise, which is building leadership and confidence in kids through sport and adventure. And just the other night of talking about, giving that feedback and giving it around, like, how is it that I felt? If I was doing a discussion with one of the groups and there was 12 of them and like 10 of them were talking amongst themselves. And it's like, I could have just said right there, like, okay, everyone, like, for the 100th time, like, well, let's try and focus here. But it is again around that, like, how do you think it makes me feel right now that I am up here speaking, trying to get a message across, and there's 2 out of 12 of you that are actually like paying attention right now, and then doing an exercise with them, like, around how, like, when we're not given attention in a certain area, or like when the respect isn't there, of how that actually makes us feel and changes our experience, versus just that, like, nonstop saying, like, all right, everyone, eyes up here, pay attention. Okay.
Yeah. I interview a lot of people and talk to a lot of people, and frequently somebody would say, or we would talk about, like, what's your superpower? Like, what is it that you can do that is really, really great, that is really, really unique? And for me, it's being able to frame something that's difficult into something that is accepted. Like, this thing is broken, being able to frame that of, like, oh, that's not so bad. I'll figure out a way around that. Another one that I take on is that, questions. When you watch someone that is really an expert at it, it's just like watching a movie that is like, I'm so sucked into it, I just can't even move my eyes. I can't even, like, not pay attention, because it's just like art. So it's like so powerful.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier diversity in tech, and we're actually going to talk to an expert in diversity in an interview after you. Tell me a little bit about diversity in tech. Like, when you said that, like, for someone who's not very tech savvy, and you're talking about the importance of diversity, I'm assuming within tech, but like, what, like help me understand what that means exactly.
Yeah, well, I think the lens is making people feel welcome. Like, everyone has a different lens and a different view of things. And me joining a company, what I need to feel welcome and part of the team is different than what you need. And kind of like in the quote old days, like, it is like blanket programs, all hands meetings, emails like this, performance reviews that look like this, and we're all like going in the same direction. And we have Beer Friday every week, and everyone goes to Beer Friday. But the idea of that just doesn't land anymore. The idea of, like, really trying to understand people and think about strategies and approaches that are more inclusive. That not everyone drinks beer. Not everybody values this particular thing. Kind of like the way of the world is this smaller programs of things that tailor to different people to help people be successful. Like, maybe there's a resource group that speaks to something in particular a certain way that resonates, excuse me, and lifts them up and makes people feel welcome. Maybe there is a series of training sessions. Maybe there is an all hands meeting. Maybe there is, but it's like figuring out the mix of people that are there and kind of what they need to be successful and, like, not churn, like, not leave the organization. So I feel like they're included. Like, the idea of, like, people need a best friend at work. And so someone that I can rely on and kind of, like, empathize with and vent with. And so every once in a while I'll talk to people and I'll say, do you have a best friend at work? Well, I have someone that's like this or that, or like, kind of. And it's like, okay, well, that's really important, just to make sure that you feel like there's someone that you can speak openly with, And if the two of you wanted to come to talk to me, that would be fine as well. But it really is just trying to understand who's here, what they need to be successful, and strategies that include everybody versus those blanket like catch-all traditional things.
Well, that's so interesting because what you're saying in there is so true, right? We can assume that people want the same things as maybe we want, and you start building a culture around these things, and it doesn't lend itself well to other groups that may not feel welcome, or just don't feel included, or don't feel involved.
Yeah, and what partially paints this picture for me as well is I have a teenager, two teenagers actually, but one in particular that I see that what he needs, well, actually what both of them need are very specific programs or campaigns or information relayed a certain way that's going to resonate. If it was to be like, we're going to have an all hands meeting in the gym and we're going to talk about all these things, like that just doesn't land with kids today. Like people need to really be understood and for things to be tailored. And it's hard, like in education and like healthcare and many other things to tailor that. But I can tell you, watching as an observer, those big bucket programs don't land with teenagers, like not with mine anyways, and need people to understand them a bit more, need other ways to kind of group them together or strategies so that everybody kind of wins, which is hard, I get, but it obviously it's seen very clearly to me.
Yeah, that's such a great observation. And I think in how like some of that is not even lost as we become adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just kind of making me think about that and how just that the one approach, or just assuming that everyone is going to understand, or that everyone has the certain like knowledge and training and expertise, so the same message is going to land amongst everyone, and that's not always the way that it ends.
Yeah, and the difficult answer there is to know that it just takes time, investing, listening, meeting, understanding, and it's hard to get quick wins there. It's like, book a series of one-on-ones, get to know the team, understand the culture, understand the organization, and then eventually it's going to net out into little bits here and there where everyone's going to feel like there's something that kind of matches, that helps them be successful. But it's not a quick win. And so it really is an investment in time that can't be measured or isn't always seen. Like there are actions that I have can be measured as ROI. And this is just kind of one of the things that I take pride in and really enjoy. That is a requirement. And it takes me more time than other people, maybe, or I approach it differently than other people. And we would hope others would as well. But it's so important, like even in customer success, I talk about, retaining our customers and them being successful. Relationship is 51%, code and technology and features and buttons is tech. It's, it's kind of black and white, but relationships and like understanding and like us being friends, and you trusting me trusting you, goes a long, long way, which you need to invest in. It takes time. So there aren't any quick wins there. In time, it pays off, but it doesn't really come back to how well you know someone in relationships.
Oh, you're muted, Dave.
Yeah, I know. I was like, speaking of kids, I've got a young child running up and down and up top, so I'm trying to mute I don't know, for some reason Dragon Chairs, it sounds like. I don't know what it is. But it's speaking of kids, it is true, because your kids, I have 3 children, and what worked with the first child doesn't necessarily work with the third child. Well, actually, does not work with the third child, and there's different requirements, and it makes sense. And then this is coming from the same gene pool and from the same household. You would think there would be some sort of you'd have something figured out, but every human being has kind of different wants and needs, and that's not even to kind of start to filter in culture and religion and language and all those sorts of things. So is this like, I mean, we're at the end here, but I'm just wondering, like, this where the workforce is going, and where the customer experience is going. Just, your thoughts on how important it is to focus on the diversity, not only in your workforce, but in your customers as well. And I just kind of, what are the lessons there that leaders should be considering and thinking about as we kind of move into this, this kind of next, I don't even know what we call it, kind of, area. It's kind of post-COVID sort of, but it just, more tech enabled. There's kind of hybrid workforces and all these things to consider. But how does diversity play into all that?
Well, I think even like to take it back one step, I think the challenge for leaders and managers and, coaches, from my perspective, is really getting to know your team, like getting to know who you work with and really understanding what drives them, what motivates them, what makes them tick, and trying to figure out a way to speak to that or respond to that or, speak to that, that helps them feel welcome and part of the team. Like what you need is different than another member of the team needs, and I can't just blanket send an email and confirm that it's landed. And so the challenge really is just really get to know your people, which is an easy thing to say out loud, but we hope that leaders would really care and really want to get to know people and really get to know what drives them and really help them be successful by that teamwork, collaboration of like, hey, I know this is really important to you. We talked about this last week. Here is another example where you can flex that skill. Like, I already know that. And so like, I would love if you can take that on, but it's only because I knew that, only because you told me, or either only because, you offered it to me. But it really is about trying to, really get to know your team members and so hard working remote, to really feel that. But I hope that is maybe the one thing that people get from this. Well, maybe they get more from it, but really get to know people that you work with.
What's so interesting about that for me, and I don't know why this, like I find it fascinating, is we get, often we do work with teams, and I'll do an icebreaker where I'll get people to, interview a partner, and they'll ask each other a series of questions, and then they'll introduce the partner. And it'll be things like, what's your nickname? Where were you born? What's one little known fact? Those sorts of questions. And these sometimes they've been intact teams for a decade or longer. And generally what, the outcome of that is, well, it's a nice way for me to get to know the group as we get things rolling. But more importantly, they get to know each other better. And I guess going back to what I think is fascinating is, like, I'm thinking, man, isn't it amazing you can work with someone for years and years and years and not know some of these things? And I don't know what it is, but we seem to forget to, and I think what you're advocating for is invest the time, get to know the person, and it will pay dividends. Would that be fair?
100%. And listen closely, which is really, really hard with like information overload with every device all over the place. But like so many things that you said there, I could respond to, and it could go so many different directions, but like I could pull that thread all day long. But really listening and collaborating and helping you see that I understand you and you understand me, goes a long, long way. And I think that's kind of the message, I hope, of like making people feel welcome and part of the team, is like, he's actually taken the time to get to know me, and he wants to know what drives me, what makes me successful. That's fantastic. And so like, I'm going to step up my game, or I'm going to follow through with this, because like, I've never talked to anyone like that before. But it goes a long, long way.
Absolutely. Well, I think ultimately, doesn't it say he or she cares about me and my well-being, and people are willing to tend to, at least I do, I lean in a lot more when I know when someone actually cares enough to learn, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
well, go ahead, Dave.
No, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Nigel, like, this has been phenomenal. And so how can people reach out to you, hear more about what it is that you're doing, get in contact with you?
Yeah, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I think we can be a jumping off point. Feel free to reach out, contact me. Happy to collaborate, happy to brainstorm. Love speaking with people that are kind of like-minded, or, wish to kind of brainstorm and collaborate. And maybe the other ask would be, if you're a grad of a post-secondary institution in Canada, think about Future Launch and signing up to be a mentor. It's quote free. It's your time. But you can really make a difference on young people, like helping them break into the workforce and really offer something that is really, really valuable.
Yeah, I loved reading your bio, Nigel, and hearing more about you and all of the mentorship and community-based work that it is that you are doing, both with the younger generation. And, I was reading about the mountain biking stuff and just the similarities, the similar groups and stuff that we have with that, and just how you are really giving back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we could talk about mountain biking and, kids mountain bike programs and all day long. And so, but anyways, thank you.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole. And at the end of each episode, Dave and I do takeaways. Dave, do you want to go first?
Oh, you let me go first. See, the theory, Nigel, is that that I always suggest that Emily took my takeaway, and then so I'm stuck with it. So now she's turned it around on me, and I very smartly. So for me, it's just such a great reminder of just that investment in time that you should take in your customers, but in your teammates and people around you. And it's very easy to get caught up in just getting the next task done and completed, but the value of the investment of time and how that really pays off down the road. So that's something that's it's a good reminder, and I appreciate from a customer service lens.
Yeah. See, you took mine, Dave. But even with that, it's that, like, how somebody can possibly have an employee that has worked for them for the last 10 years. And they're like, but I've told you this 100 times and I know this person. But it's like, but have you really invested the time in getting to know that person and understanding that person? And with that, I think an even kind of larger takeaway from me is being able to be open to receive feedback, and how difficult it can be sometimes, because it's not often what it is that we want to hear or how we see ourselves, but being more open to ask for that, because ultimately it does, help uncover our blind spots and helps us deal with situations and people more efficiently and more effectively and in a more caring way.
Yeah, well, and isn't all of that our legacy? Like what I leave behind is hopefully people that have learned something and have grown and benefited, and now they're on to bigger and better jobs, better careers, better benefits. And maybe I played a small role in it, but it's something that I can look back on and hope that I helped to contribute to build.
Yeah, amazing.
And I got feedback, Nigel, from Emily, that butterflies are my thing. So that's something that I'll take to the bank. I never thought that. So it's good. Feedback's great. It was a blind spot I had.
You match the room, Dave. Like your shirt matches.
Maybe I'll do more here. The sun's going in and out. Nigel, thanks so much. Great to have you on. Great to meet you. Hopefully get to meet you in person at some point. And Genevieve will take us out, as she always does.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
And it's awesome for me. I can say that Nigel did have that impact for me as a previous manager. He helped me grow a lot. I know we were through some difficult conversations. I don't know if he'll say the same, but I'll jump into where you can find his episode. You're going to find it on boilingpointpodcast.com, as with all of our other conversations. It's released on all your favorite podcast channels, and the video version will be released on Facebook and YouTube, and you connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Boiling Point Podcast. Remember to subscribe and rate our podcast on your favorite listening platform. To find out more, head to our website at boilingpointpodcast.com. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. To find out more about Dave Vale's work, head over to visioncoachinginc.com. Thanks for listening, and make sure to check out our next conversation.